Hey, everybody. Today is Thursday, April the 5th, 2018, and you are watching FCN Prime News. Sitting at the news desk is yours truly, Trezeday, editor of FCN1, home of news, business, and politics. And I am especially glad to be with you all today because I'm going to get you all the way right with the news stories you need to know and want to know from a perspective that matters most to you. It is Thursday, so all of our loyal followers know what that means. Following tonight's episode of Prime News will be the Thursday Wind Down, hosted by Starla K. Mathis. It's your chance to grab some wine and some snacks and kick it with Starla as she talks the latest gossip and news before recapping Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and predicting how those seasons will end. After Starla does her thing with her guest, you will see J. Cole and the Reggie Mathis on True Baller Thursday, where those sports junkies will talk all things basketball all night long. It's also National Burrito Day, and I tried to get the FCN fam to cancel some shows tonight so that we could go celebrate at our favorite Mexican spot. I even took a poll to see who was getting the X. Here it is. Can you believe these guys? They basically voted so that nobody would get the X. They're just overachievers. Nah, I'm just playing. We're all going to be on air tonight because we truly want to be here delivering great content to all of you. So here I am, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Thank you for all of your support for this program wherever you happen to be watching. If you haven't already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our channels. We're on YouTube and Facebook at /The Fifth Column Network. Prime News is on Instagram and Twitter and Periscope at FCN_1. You can also watch all of our programming on demand on our website, thefifthcolumnnetwork.com, where all of our programming is there. You can watch it by date, you can watch it by channel, or you can watch it by show. Prime News is on channel FCN1. All right, take time to share this program with your friends and followers by hitting that share button at the bottom of your screen. And don't forget to leave your comments, thoughts, and questions as I'm sharing the news, because the conversation always begins when the news stories end. And of course, I will be reading your comments live. So let's get into this news. First, the infamous affluenza teen who killed 4 people in Texas while driving drunk in 2013 when he was 16 years old was released from jail this past Monday, a few days after before his 21st birthday, after serving nearly 2 years in prison. About 5 years ago, Ethan Couch's case made national headlines after his lawyers bizarrely but successfully tried to explain away his crimes as a case of affluenza, explaining the term to mean that because he grew up rich, he was unable to discern right from wrong. At the time of the drunk driving accident in June of 2013, Ethan's blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit for an adult. Nonetheless, his lawyer's ridiculous claims appeared to work, and he was initially sentenced to just 10 years probation and ordered to attend a very plush rehab facility to be paid for by his rich parents. But about 2 years later, videos surfaced showing Ethan apparently violating his probation, which required that he stay away from drugs and alcohol. And authorities started searching for Ethan after the video made circles online, but he and his mother fled to Mexico, where they were later caught and deported back to the United States. In 2016, a judge transferred his probation to the adult system and ordered him to serve 720 days in jail, 180 days for each of the 4 drunk driving victims that he killed, which apparently was the maximum sentence available for a probation violation. His mama is currently in jail for violating her own probation after being charged for helping Ethan flee the country. She apparently failed a drug test. Maybe affluenza is a real thing because it also appears to be hereditary. With that, I'd like to feature this Facebook post by a longtime subscriber and faithful commenter on FCN Prime News at Ramon Javier Benitez, who offered this golden nugget on the subject. He wrote, "Dear future judge, prosecutors, and jurors, I would like to admit as an exhibit, I have suffered a lifetime of insufficient fundinza." Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know about you, but I think that argument is worth a try. Ain't a psychologist in America who could factually deny the multitude of effects of being broke. I can totally feel prosecutors, though, around the country rolling their eyes at me right now. Speaking of prosecutors, a Pennsylvania DA has been charged with multiple crimes as a result of tipping off female drug dealers and giving them lenient treatment in exchange for sex. District Attorney Bill Higgins is facing dozens of criminal charges and has stepped down over what he calls accusations he engaged in conduct unbecoming of a district attorney and unbecoming of a husband and father. Yeah. Charging documents say one woman performed oral sex on Higgins about a month after he told a state trooper not to charge her with drug delivery. The police affidavit says that another woman claims that after she performed oral sex on Higgins, he told her that her cousin could thank her for not getting arrested. Higgins' defense attorney says that his client maintains his innocence. He also raised questions about the credibility of these female witnesses against Higgins. Of course he did. Shapiro, the state attorney, said the state police probe into Higgins began in 2015 as a drug investigation and involved an investigative grand jury. Higgins disclosed the names of confidential informants to female drug dealers whom he was having sex with, or to their friends and associates. Allegedly, Higgins told a woman he refused to sign a search warrant for her home, told a drug dealer that a person trying to buy drugs from her was an informant, and encouraged a female drug dealer to lie to a grand jury about their sexual relationship. This guy has been arraigned as of yesterday on 31 counts, including witness intimidation, official oppression, and obstruction. He was released on $50,000 bail. Continuing the conversation about public officials doing very bad things, last week, New York lawmakers passed a bill that bans police officers from having sex with people in custody. And by having sex with people in custody, I mean raping people they have detained in their custody. Yes, lawmakers had to actually draft a bill to tell police officers that detained people are unable to consent to sex, in order to close a legal loophole that have been letting police officers avoid sexual charges by saying the sex was consensual. In New York, saying the sex was consensual would allow them to be convicted of, at most, a misdemeanor for official misconduct. BuzzFeed has reported that a total of 6 states have had to pass bills like this to stop the practice. In New York, lawmakers were motivated after 2 on-duty NYPD officers raped an 18-year-old woman in their police van last year after they arrested her on marijuana charges. Prime News reported on that story back in November when the 2 officers were charged. They are currently facing 50 counts against them and have since resigned from the police force. It should be noted that there were no claims of consent in that particular case. Things aren't going well for the NYPD as last night they shot and killed an unarmed black man in the streets. 4 New York Police Department officers shot and killed 34-year-old Saheed Vassell in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn. Last night, police alleged that Vassell, a black man described by a witness as mentally challenged, was holding a metal pipe with some sort of knob on the end of it and pointed it at them before they fired the shots. Police claim the man they gunned down, quote, took a two-handed shooting stance, unquote, and aimed the metal pipe at them. Officers responded to 3 911 calls that came in about 4:40 p.m. about a black man wearing a brown leather jacket waving a silver gun at people. 4 NYPD officers, one uniformed, 3 plainclothes, then fired 10 shots at Vassell, hitting him multiple times. The Daily News has reported that no weapon was found at the scene. A witness told the Daily News that blood was everywhere and they put him on his back and tried to compress his chest, but he was already gone. Saheed Vassell was reportedly very well known in his neighborhood. He's known to speak to himself, usually carrying an orange Bible or a rosary in his hand, and they said he never had a problem with anyone. The officers from the neighborhood know him well. He has no issue with violence and says everyone just knows that he is mentally challenged and this should not have happened to him. Saheed Vassell's father told reporters that his son was indeed bipolar and has not been on his medication for years. Here is a picture of the silver gun he was waving around. Yes, that is a silver shower head. According to the Washington Post database of police shootings, nearly 300 people nationwide have been shot and killed by police so far this year of our Lord 2018. You can guess how many indictments or convictions of police have resulted from those killings. Speaking of indictments and convictions, all over buzz in our nation's capital as Special Counsel Robert Mueller has announced that President 45 remains under investigation and that he's planning to issue a report that details everything Trump has done that he has discovered in his probe into Russia's interference with the 2016 presidential election. The source for this information, who was not authorized to speak publicly about private conversations and demanded anonymity, said that the president is considered a subject of Mueller's probe, but not a target. A subject is typically someone whose conduct is of interest to investigators, but prosecutors aren't certain that they've gathered enough evidence to bring formal charges. Trump's designation as a subject came up as prosecutors and the president's legal team have been negotiating the terms of an interview between Trump and Mueller. The president has said that he wants to speak with Mueller's team, but his lawyers have not publicly committed to allowing Trump to be questioned. Mueller reiterated the need to interview Trump, both to understand whether he had any corrupt intent to thwart the Russia investigation and to complete this portion of his probe, the person said. The special counsel also told Trump's lawyers that he is preparing a report about the president's actions while in office and potential obstruction of justice. According to two people with knowledge of these conversations, under special counsel's regulations, Mueller is required to report his conclusions confidentially to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod J. Rosenstein, who has the authority to then decide whether to release that information publicly. Mueller's description of the president's status has sparked conflict within Trump's inner circle as his advisors have debated his legal standing. The president and some of his allies seized on the special counsel's announcements as assurance that Trump's risk of criminal jeopardy is low. Other advisors, however, note that the subject of investigations can easily become indicted targets and expressed concern that the special counsel prosecutor is trying to bait Trump into an interview that could put the president in legal peril. As I reported in the past, several legal scholars and impeachment experts believe Mueller may conclude he does not have the power and authority to charge a sitting president with a crime under an opinion written by the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel in 1973 and reaffirmed in 2000. If Mueller does indeed find Trump engaged in criminal conduct, he could detail it in that report, experts argue, and let Congress decide whether to launch an impeachment proceedings based on those findings. This new development was first reported by the Washington Post. All I have to say is bait him, Mueller, bait 45 into talking, and I look forward to reading that report along with Congress. I don't know how much longer we can deal with Trump as president, because this week he ordered the National Guard to haul themselves down to Mexico to protect the border with Mexico against illegal immigrants. Yes, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen confirmed that Trump signed a proclamation on Wednesday ordering the deployment of the National Guard to help protect the border with Mexico. She said that Trump directed the Department of Defense along with the Department of Homeland Security to work together with all state governors to deploy the National Guard to our southwest border to assist the Border Patrol. At least one governor has publicly said hell nah to that order. Oregon Governor Kate Brown, a Democrat, said that she would reject a request from President Trump to dispatch National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. She said in the tweet, and I quote, "If at real Donald Trump asks me to deploy Oregon Guard troops to the Mexico border, I'll say no. As commander of Oregon's Guard, I am deeply troubled by Trump's plan to militarize our border." She then added, "There's been no outreach by the president or federal officials, and I have no intention of allowing Oregon's Guard troops to be used to distract from his troubles in Washington." However, the governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, welcomed the order. He tweeted, and I quote, "Arizona welcomes the deployment of National Guard to the border. Washington has ignored this issue for far too long and help is needed. For Arizona, it is all about public safety. The National Guard troops will not have physical contact with immigrants, nor will they be responsible for processing them at the border," one official said. "Instead, they will be giving customs agents more visibility by providing surveillance by air and through camera monitoring of the border. President George W. Bush issued a similar policy in 2006 called Operation Jumpstart, though a White House official said it is not yet clear how closely the new deployment will mimic that plan. President Barack Obama also deployed National Guard troops to the border in 2010 to help provide surveillance by air. In other political news, Stacey Dash said she is no longer going to run for Congress. Less than 5 weeks after declaring her candidacy for Congress, the actress Stacey Dash announced Friday that she was withdrawing from the race to represent a very heavily Democratic House district in California. In a statement posted on Twitter, Ms. Dash, who is best known for her role in the 1995 movie Clueless, said that she had concluded that the bitterness surrounding our political process, the rigors of campaigning, and even the act of holding office itself would be harmful to her and her family. Deciding to withdraw my candidacy, she said, was a difficult choice, but I have to go where I feel God is leading me, unquote, she said. Ms. Dash, age 51, is a Republican, and her decision to compete for a seat in California's 44th district was very puzzling for many. The district encompasses much of South LA, including largely black cities and neighborhoods like Compton and Watts, as well as communities that are increasingly Latino. Hillary Clinton received 83% of the vote there in the 2016 election, and Barack Obama won similar shares in 2008 and 2012. Mrs. Dash came onto the political stage in earnest when she endorsed Mitt Romney's presidential campaign in 2012. She was also a Fox News contributor from 2014 to 16 and an early supporter of President Trump. Her endorsements of Republican candidates drew significant attention, you all remember, and backlash, in part because she's black, but mostly because she's just utterly clueless. All right, let's turn our attention to what folks are talking about these days in the social media streets. First up, there was breaking news today this afternoon. The Atlanta researcher that was reported missing more than 7 weeks ago has been found. His body's been found in the Chattahoochee River, a Fulton County medical examiner said today. Timothy Cunningham, age 35, was last seen February 12th, leaving his job at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention after telling colleagues that he didn't feel well. Cunningham's family and police found his keys, his wallet, his cell phone, his car, his beloved dog, Mr. Bojangles, inside of his Northwest Atlanta home undisturbed. In the days after Cunningham's disappearance, Atlanta police said he had been upset about not getting a promotion, However, the CDC later retracted that information, saying that Cunningham had recently gotten a promotion. Late Tuesday, 2 fishermen spotted a body in the Chattahoochee River and called 911. According to police, on Thursday morning, investigators did identify his body as being Timothy Cunningham. The Morehouse College and Harvard University graduate was an epidemiologist who worked for the chronic disease department of the CDC. Investigators, though, are saying that there are no signs of foul play. Social media has also been abuzz talking about Winnie Mandela. On Monday evening, Miss Winnie Mandela died in Johannesburg, South Africa at the age of 81 after being sick for a very, very long time. She was the wife of South Africa's first black president, Nelson Mandela. While her husband was in prison for almost 3 decades, she was the face of the country's anti-apartheid movement, earning her the nickname Mother of the Nation. During that time, she was arrested and spent more than a year in solitary confinement. She and Nelson Mandela did separate soon after his release from prison and divorced a few years later. She stayed in the political world, however, becoming a member of parliament and once serving as Deputy Minister of the Arts, Culture, Science, and Technology. A memorial service for Winnie Mandela will be held April 11th, and an official national funeral will be April the 14th. Social media was also abuzz. Hashtag MLK50. Just a reminder to everyone that white people really hated Dr. King, and the commemoration of his death should always consider that perspective. I always want to remind you that he was not the caricature that they present of him today. The best tweet for me of hashtag MLK50 comes from Jamel Hill of ESPN. She says, and I quote, "I meant to post this yesterday amid the many remembrances of MLK 50. Gonna guess these words by MLK won't be committed to memory the same way others have." Let's roll that clip of Martin Luther King's words.
What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
White America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Never forget what they did to Martin. Never forget that they did it to Martin, and that some people might be celebrating the fact that he is gone. While folks were celebrating hashtag MLK50, Bill Cosby's retrial has gone on. His jury was picked yesterday, and 10 of them are white and 7 of them are men. The gender and racial breakdown of this jury does mirror the makeup of the jury that deliberated Cosby's fate for 52 hours last year and failed to reach a verdict, forcing a mistrial. Defense attorneys accused the prosecution of getting rid of all the prospective jurors who were older white men and older black women. The new trial is set to begin April the 9th. It is scheduled to last a month. Cosby did get a win earlier this week, however, when the judge ruled that he can call a witness who claims his accuser, Andrea Castan, once boasted that she could fabricate sex allegations against a celebrity for money. Cosby's lawyers hope to use testimony from the woman to impeach the credibility of Castan, who alleges the comedian drugged and molested her at his Pennsylvania home in 2004. This new development comes after the judge allowed 5 more accusers to come into this trial to testify against Bill Cosby. Legal experts expect him to have a harder time making his case because of something that happened since a mistrial was declared 9 months ago, and that is the Me Too movement. Hashtag Me Too has changed the way people are generally evaluating stories of sexual violation. There is less skepticism, less doubt, less distrust, and more of a willingness to at least not discredit the account of sexual assault. For those who need a reminder, Cosby is 80 years old. In other courtroom news, Meek Mill's bail request has gotten denied. Despite the fans' petitions, celebrity support, his mother's open letter, and legal assistant rapper Meek Mill will stay behind bars because the judge denied his request to come home on bail. Things have not been easy with his judge, Janice Brinkley, who didn't really give reasons for her decision, although Meek's team has argued that Judge Brinkley is biased and has a personal vendetta against him. Brinkley also refused a motion to recuse herself from the case and rejected out of hand the allegations of improper bias in the case. She says she stands by her decision of sentencing Meek to 2 to 4 years in prison, claiming it was his 5th probation violation and it was absolutely necessary. Prime News reported on the story in November, and it was discussed at length on the November 19th episode of the Sunday edition with frequent FCN contributor at Ebony the Writer. Meek Mill's post-conviction hearing is now scheduled for April the 16th. In shocking Courtroom News. Tupac's stepfather has filed a lawsuit against the United States government for illegal imprisonment, and it isn't frivolous at all. Mutulu Shakur, Tupac Shakur's stepfather, is suing the U.S. government after claiming his constitutional First Amendment equal protection and due process rights are being violated to prevent him from being released from prison. Mutulu was sentenced to 60 years in prison back in 1987 after being convicted of racketeering and conspiracy related to robbing a Brinks truck of almost $2 million and killing 3 security guards from the company. He was also convicted for aiding and abetting the escape of Assata Shakur from a New Jersey state prison after she was sentenced to life for the murder of a New Jersey state trooper in 1973. Shakur went up for a parole hearing 2 years ago under the mandatory parole rule, but was denied because the commission found that in Shakur's 30 years of imprisonment, he was a serious and frequent violator of institutional rules, specifically failing a drug test that was conducted 27 years before the parole hearing and is questionable in its validity, and for 4 phone infractions where he was on the phone making phone calls to university students, nonprofits, and other advocates of nonviolence, urging them to support peaceful change and otherwise sharing his message of nonviolence and peace. The commission also denied him parole, saying he had a likelihood of committing future crimes because he signed all of his correspondence with "in stiff resistance," and he often said and wrote that he was a victim of COINTELPRO and a political prisoner in his communications. Mutulu is arguing that under no circumstances does any of this allow the parole board to deny him mandatory parole under the law. His attorneys point out that everyone, and I mean everyone, in the last 2 years who were up for mandatory parole with a prison record similar to Mutulu's got paroled. He's the only one, and I repeat, the only one who was denied. His attorneys also state that not a single rule violation in his incarceration involves any violence or any threat of violence, and his prison record is exemplary, with testimony from prison staff to support it. Lastly, his lawyers also argue that under no circumstances should his First Amendment rights be violated with regards to his freedom to refer himself as a victim of the COINTEL program and a political prisoner, because in fact, the lawyers point out that the trial judge that heard his original case actually stated in the record that Mutulu was indeed, and I quote, a victim of the illegal program COINTELPRO, unquote. You would think that this would all be a common sense decision for the parole board, but Mutulu had to have 8 lawyers on his team and file a 67-page complaint to get these folks to act right. On his legal team are Benjamin Crump, who is a lawyer for Stephen Clark, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown. There's 2 lawyers from the Center for Human Rights and Constitutional Law. There's 2 lawyers from the Post-Conviction Justice Project out of the USC School of Law, and 3 other individuals, sole practitioner lawyers from New York and Georgia, who are serving as of counsel. The complaint is suing the warden of the Bureau of Prisons, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the United States Department of Justice, and the United States Parole Commission and the United States Department of Justice. My goodness, much luck and Godspeed to his legal team in the pursuit of Mutulu Shakur's release. All right, before I head up out of here, I think it's a good idea to give some honorable mentions. There are some folks who are out here doing the daggone thing, and y'all should know who they are, and they are more than deserving of a shout out. First up is a gentleman named Malachi Jones. Malachi Jones, he is a 17-year-old wonderkind who is heading to Columbia University this fall, and he has been awarded a gold medal portfolio, the highest honor of the 2018 Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. Malachi joins a prestigious group of former youth winners now who are all household names, including Truman Capote, Sylvia Plath, Joyce Carol Oates, and Stephen King. According to the Post and Courier, Malachi's writing reflects his rejection of the trope of the stereotypical black man and instead shows that he has chosen to forge his own way of being black in the world. The article states that Jones' award-winning work is a collection of lyric essays and free verse poems that revolves around his experience as a Black teenager struggling with and finally coming to terms with his identity. Within the award's 29 categories, which included poetry, photography, sculpture, humor, editorial cartoons, and video game design, a record-breaking 346,000 works of art and writing were submitted this year. Congratulations to Malachi Jones for winning, and we look forward to him doing great things and publishing great works in the years to come. The next shout out goes to former Obama official Susan Rice, as she has become the first Black person appointed to the board of directors for Netflix. Netflix chairman and CEO Reed Hastings released a statement confirming the news, saying that, and I quote, "For decades, she has tackled difficult, complex global issues with intelligence, integrity, and insight, and we look forward to benefiting from her experience and wisdom." A Netflix representative has also confirmed that Rice is indeed the first Black person to serve on their board. Rice served the Obama administration as National Security Advisor and Ambassador to the United Nations. During the Clinton administration, Susan Rice worked as U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and a member of the National Security Council. She has served on several boards, including the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the Bureau of National Affairs, National Democratic Institute, and the U.S. Fund for UNICEF. Rice will begin her tenure on the board on March 26, but has not been appointed to any committees yet, according to Variety. Our next shout out goes to a woman named Epsie Campbell. Miss Campbell has been elected Vice President of Costa Rica. She becomes not only the first Black female vice president of the nation, but the first Afro-Latina to hold a vice presidential position in all of Latin America. Campbell is an economist and a published author. She holds a master's degree in international cooperation for the development and advanced management techniques and political decision. Who knew that was even a degree? Campbell is the granddaughter of Jamaican immigrants to Costa Rica. She has always been an advocate for income and racial equality in Costa Rica, as she was the former head of the Center for Women of African Descent, the former head of Alliance of Leaders of African Descent in Latin America and the Caribbean, the former head of the Black Parliament of the Americas. Yes, she's been doing quite a bit. Congratulations to her. And lastly, a huge shout out to 24-year-old author Tomi Adeyemi. The 24-year-old scored one of the highest book deals in history and netted a 7-figure movie deal for her epic Nigerian fantasy series. Tomi Adeyemi said on Good Morning America that her Nigerian heritage played a huge role in shaping her debut novel titled The Children of Blood and Bone. The book is one book in a trilogy and is being dubbed Black Panther with Magic. The story is about a fisherman's daughter who is sent on a quest to restore magic to her culture. She is confident by divine forces and teams up with unlikely allies. The book is, she says, unapologetically Nigerian, as Nigerian myths and legends are an integral part of the book. Many places are named after Nigerian cities, characters wear traditional Nigerian fashion, and there's a spiritual connection to the country. The book is out now. Go cop one when you're out. All right, that's all I have for the news stories tonight. I do believe we have quite a few comments on social media. I hope that my phone actually shows them all. I hate it when after the news broadcast is over and then I go to a desktop and I see that I totally missed some of y'all comments. Know that I'm not doing it on purpose. Y'all just blame Facebook for their shenanigans. Let's see. So top comment here is Desmond Alves. I hope I said that right, Desmond. I think he's referring to the Winnie Mandela funeral. He says, make sure they check the ASL translator at her funeral. That is so funny, because you all remember the viral video that went where a woman was literally just going ham doing sign language, and a lot of people were like, she's not doing real sign language. So yes, they should definitely find someone who was actually doing American Sign Language at her funeral. Desmond Alves also said that he thought the same thing at that very moment at 1995. Oh, that's in response to J. Cole's comment that if you're best known for anything 1995, please move on. We don't want to see you anymore. And that's in reference to Stacey Dash running for Congress. Yes, I don't know what she was thinking. I'm like, we all know you for this one movie. Has she done anything else that's been remotely great? Nothing. So I think in an article she,
B movies.
huh, B movies?
Oh wait.
C movies?
I'm lying. She was in Mo Money.
She was in Mo Money? What letter movie is that? C?
That's
B? Oh, A? What is that?
I don't know what you call it. A. Yeah, the Wayans brothers.
Yeah, she really needs to go sit down somewhere. I think she complained that she hasn't been getting auditions. She hasn't been, go sit down, work on your life and work out that plan with a publicist, because nothing's gonna work for you right now, not at all. Let's see, Will Hodges, you have the right to remain silent. What was that in reference to? Y'all know? No clue? Will, you know the drill, you know better. You're a part of the FCN fam. You gotta tell us what you're talking about. Your comment gets dismissed. J. Cole, he gonna get that 2 million one way or the other. That's in reference to Mr. Shakur. Yeah, so in reading the story, I'm like, oh my God. Not saying he robbed a Brinks truck, because he still denies those allegations, and there was really no evidence thrown in court that he was a part of that. But you ever seen a Brinks truck and be like, man? But then you see just how loaded they are with all their guns, and you're like, that is not a good idea. It's not. I'm not gonna say what producer said. It's not hard to rob a Brinks truck. Note to self: put extra money in the FCN Legal Defense Fund. Let's see, Desmond Alves, and he sneezed. What was that?
About Shakur. When you were running the list.
Ah, gotcha. Unbecoming, funny wording. Yes, because when you're guilty and you don't want to talk about it, you talk that way. You say that, oh, I'm being accused of things unbecoming, because you can't say what you did. You're not there yet. You're not there. Not at all. Oh, any more comments? I hope I didn't miss any on the thread. Y'all see any more? Nope. All right. Well, I'm out of here. Coming up next is Starla K. Mathis with the Thursday Wind Down. Following that will be J. Cole and the Reggie Mathis with True Baller Thursday. Don't forget, tomorrow we have programming on Friday. It's Friday nights, where we show awful science fiction films for you to enjoy with whatever snacks and whatever company you want. That's always streaming on our Facebook page at 10 p.m. and is on our website at 10 p.m. as well. And then Sunday, we will be back with WrestleMania, all things WrestleMania, where Hoke Tone and T-Shack Talks, I'm gonna get that right, they're gonna be doing everything WrestleMania that day. So definitely like, subscribe, and follow. You're not gonna want to miss anything at all over these next few days. With that, I thank you all for watching Prime News. I'm Trezene, and I will see you all next time.